There we go. Okay. So we have a little presentation with these slides we'll go by. Very important. I know people might have a lot of questions, so what we'll do is we'll take your questions if you put them on the chat, and we'll have Jacqueline gather them. And as the speakers are finishing their portions, we'll go ahead and start asking those questions. If we have spare time, of course, we can take some more questions, okay? So in the meantime, let's go on to the next slide, please, Suleima. You should have received a confirmation email for this event with a link. I think it was a monkey survey link. We're going to ask you to please fill it out as early as possible. With Mi Mentor being a national organization, we also rely a lot on statistics. We want to know who is taking advantage of the programming, who needs the programming, and we'll only get to know that when we hear directly from you. So just as a reminder, if you haven't filled it out, go ahead and fill it out and send it in as soon as possible. We'll also have a reminder later on so you don't forget. Okay, let's go to the next one. Suleima, go ahead and introduce us as an organization, please.
Hi, everybody. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Suleima. I thank you for joining us this evening. I have been part of Mi Mentor for about 6 months or so on the board. I am one of the vice presidents of mentorship for the SoCal region. A little bit about Mi Mentor is that they are a nonprofit organization committed to nurturing and creating mentorship programs and opportunities such as these. And they're located within 3 regions. They serve North Cal, Central Cal, and the SoCal.
Mm-hmm. Okay, within Mi Mentor, it's historically has primarily, it was founded by physicians and physicians from all over the country. However, as the need for more primary care providers has been more visible, the entering of PAs and pre-PAs into the organization also increased. And that's where we come in. We decided to solidify work that will benefit the pre-PA community. So the people running the programming is us, pre-PA students. We understand how difficult, how tedious, and how discouraging being on the pre-PA path is. And because of that, we understand exactly like pressing portions that need to be filled in, gaps that need to be, mended and whatnot. So the committee that runs the behind the scenes work of which you're witnessing today is done by us pre-PAs in a committee and people that have joined our online network. So our plan is to bring in programming that will show you stories such as today, but also help you network. We do plan on having an in-person gathering for the Southern California region sometime in March. I believe we said something like March 16, which will be a Saturday, for you to come and meet the people that have been helping out with Mi Mentor. We also want to make sure that we have some sort of information venue where we can tell you where we have done our volunteering, where we have worked in the past. And in that case, we are serving as each other's resources. And all this is for free. The main community we want to serve is the underprivileged students, but also the ones that have been historically underrepresented in medicine. And so with that, we hope that we can instill some of that passion that we have for helping each other so that generations behind you are exactly doing exactly the same sort of service. So let's go on to the next slide. So we have our guest tonight. We are going to start with Samantha and then Lisbeth. So I think the next slide is, for our speakers, go ahead and introduce yourself. Again, we'll take questions in the chat box, And then when you finish, we'll move on to the next person and so on. Okay, so take it away, Samantha.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Fortier. Thank you so much for letting me be here. I am honored.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lisbeth Acosta. I'm really, really honored to be here. Thank you guys so much for coming and listening to us talk about our stories.
Perfect. So what I like to do is like give a little background about myself. So I am from Los Angeles County. I went to undergrad at Penn State in Pennsylvania. I graduated in 2016. My major was biobehavioral health. My minor was global health minor. I did research abroad. And my concentration for my graduate program was in epidemiology, biostatistics, and a community assessment. Since graduating, I have been taking courses at either community college. When I lived in Boston, I did Northeastern. And then here I work at UCLA. So I was able to take some courses through some scholarship funded through UCLA. My experience is I've been a clinical research coordinator in biomedical clinical trials, specifically in ID. I've done a lot of research with HIV prevention, HIV treatment, STIs, and I also did COVID-19 treatment studies. I also, I'm very focused on being in the community, so I also was part of a lot of community assessments as well. Regarding here of where I volunteer, I actually volunteer a lot at USC. I will volunteer every Sunday in the cardiac unit. Through that volunteering, I actually was was able to find another volunteer program called By Your Side at USC. It just really started this year. It was a grassroots organization in the community, but USC actually started kind of recognizing it, which has been great. Regarding that one is when patients, unfortunately, if they don't have family members and they're terminal ill, they ask volunteers to sit by their side and just have conversations. So I do that every week. For example, I have 2 patients tomorrow where unfortunately they heard the news and I just sit by their bedside. So that's a great program. It is, and I was able to get the training waived because I was a USC volunteer, but the people in charge are absolutely amazing and they help you in any way that you need to help because they definitely want people to volunteer. So those are 2 great opportunities at USC. I've also done volunteering through LA Works, where during the COVID-19 pandemic, we volunteered and canvassed around in South LA, also Van Nuys area, and provided PPE. And we worked with a lot of COVID-19 pop-up clinics. And then I'm also a part of PALH. I'm a member and a part of their committees. So when I actually applied for PA school this year, and when I first wanted to be a PA, honestly, it was a little overwhelming. I'm 29 and I knew I wanted to be in the healthcare field, but I actually didn't realize PA was a profession until I worked at UCLA. And I met this wonderful PA who really sat down with me and said, I think you would be great as a PA, and let me just kind of shadow her for a couple years. And then I had a realization last year and I was like, this is exactly what I've been searching for. I did a lot of shadowing through nurses as well as other professions, physicians, but it was until I met her and then I saw exactly what she did. She also is not only a PA, but she's a director of clinical trial operations, which I thought was amazing that a PA was able to also have these leadership roles. So it was really because of her that led me down this road. So leading down this road, I was definitely overwhelmed. It was upon researching, I saw that it was nothing really like applying for undergrad, which I was already overwhelmed with applying for undergrad. So I did a lot of research. So these are some of my strategies. This is how like my brain works. So how I did was I called it like a living Google document, and I wrote down all my experiences because I've been out of school for so long. I've also loved volunteering since I was young. So I really put everything down. And I did it in a way where I saw that it would be important for the PA application. So I divided it by like work experience, my achievements. I also have a phlebotomy license, my volunteering, who I thought I would talk to regarding letters of recommendations. I had to reach back to professors from 2014 saying, hey, I hope you remember me. And definitely they were great assets and very supportive. I also put like personal deadlines of kind of everything I was researching. So I made like a living document. It was like 9 pages of just all my experiences. And I actually used that when applying, because with those experiences, I had to write exactly what I did with those experiences, and I made it down to 100 characters. So when I applied, that was pretty much what I used, because every time I was looking at that document, I was just reorganizing, making it more concise, being more active. I have a tendency to use passive verbs, and I write very passively. So I use that document kind of as like my living document. So when I applied, I had everything in place. So I just copied and pasted over once the application opened up. Another thing, I also love Excel sheets. I researched schools where I really wanted to, where I wanted to and able to move. So I picked certain states that I thought I was okay due to family and friends if I wasn't accepted to a California school. So I researched the schools. I also gave myself a limit of the schools because it is a very expensive process applying for PA school. I'm honestly still paying off some of my credit card debts, but I think it's definitely worth it. And I want to be definitely transparent, but limiting down like the schools of applying. So I made an Excel sheet and I did what mattered to me: location, length, if the GRE was needed, grade conditions, class requirements. Diversity was huge for me, and cost, and if certain schools needed supplemental applications. Because upon reviewing, I didn't realize that some of the supplemental applications you had to apply at the same time as the main application, or you had to wait until you got an email from them. So these are the 2 methods that I did regarding organizing everything of my research. I'm a visual person, so I wanted to kind of show you like an example of my community service. So this is kind of what my living document looked like. I did like my start date, my end date, the organization name. I also, regarding their PA application, you need their contact name, their title, their phone number, their email. A lot of my mentors actually retired, so I had to kind of track down some people, and I just put it on this living document. This was some of the descriptions that my experience descriptions that I pretty much wrote, and I just concised it for the PA application. So this was just kind of a snapshot of what I did for my experiences. Also a visual person, so I wanted to show you my overwhelming Excel sheet that I did, but it was super helpful. I also I have sent this to many of my friends in case they just want to see it. It's really helpful just to visualize. So I did the state, the length, when it started, grade conditions, and actually upon doing this Excel sheet, I realized I wasn't eligible for a lot of the schools that I thought I was applying for, or that I needed to take a class, or I had to get a certification like medical terminology that I wasn't aware of. So this really helped me kind of see what was I eligible for? Did I have to redo anything? And I've been out of school and graduated. I started school in undergrad in 2012, graduated in 2016. So I was definitely at the cusp of where a lot of schools had that 10-year line. So this was really able, this Excel sheet was able for me to see it kind of a big picture of what schools am I really actually eligible for? If there's a school I really wanted, could I do that extra thing if I really wanted to and it's sustainable? But this was really a good way for me to be realistic with my statistics as well, the courses that were expiring. So this is just kind of like the timeline. The timeline that I kind of did for myself. I think you can make it definitely more concise. It's just for me during that part, I had a lot of other commitments and family stuff going on. So I just wanted to be as organized as possible. What I did was kind of began researching. I had to request unofficial transcripts. A lot of the schools luckily were free, so I didn't have to pay for it. And I really looked at the courses because during that time period, I actually had to email a lot of schools to see if these courses were okay with their standard. So, and those schools had me track down like a 2014 statistics syllabus, send it to them to see if they would be okay with it. So definitely during that research process, I'm happy I was able to do it to kind of do some of the tedious work of seeing if some of the courses were okay with their standards. So I requested those unofficial. I also reached out to getting your letter of recommendations. I started my personal statement early around January, started finalizing things in February. March is when I sought help regarding personal statement. That's where I had my friends read over my personal statement. I had my mentor read over it. I had some of my colleagues, and I just said to them, please be as honest as possible and just really be as critical as I want you to be very critical while reading it, because I think sometimes it's hard for us to boast about ourselves, and having someone to say, no, this is what you do. This is these are all the things that you do. And that really helped me during that time. So I kind of got all that pretty much ready. Even though I was organized, I do want to say applying for PA school, I was definitely overwhelmed even during that process, because you're getting all those emails and getting those supplemental applications, all those fees. But this kind of helped me towards that time. So applications, I pretty much applied in late May, and then I completed all my applications by like early July, mid-July. So I applied pretty early in the cycle. I wanted to show you my statistics. So I historically kind of have always had a lower GPA. That's why I've taken those courses at Northeastern and UCLA, and I was able to, because I found some scholarships while taking those courses, and it allowed me to take some of the courses. So I had a transition of getting a little bit higher, but statistically regarding a lot of the PA schools, I still was below the mean and the median. But I believe my experiences helped with that as well. I did take the GRE and I did not do so well, but I did take it. But I think if I would have done it again, I don't think I would have taken the GRE. So all of that kind of led me to getting accepted, which I'm very excited. I actually got the news when I was in Puerto Rico with my dad. It was his 70th birthday to go back home. So it was a very family celebration. But I'll be starting next year. I'm excited, a little bit nervous. Imposter syndrome's kind of coming in, but I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I had a few interviews. I had definitely had many rejections, and I had a couple waitlisted. But the biggest reason why, with the offers that I did receive, why Duke was, I loved the faculty were great. All the questions, I tend to ask a lot of questions even after my interview, and they were very responsive. I thought that was a great sign. I love the pass and fail. Also clinical rotations. I love working in ID. It has a special place in my heart. And I love that they had an ID rotation as an elective, because a lot of PA schools do not have that ID connection. And there's a lot of hospitals around Duke that have amazing HIV research that I would love to work on afterwards as a PA. I love their facilities that they had as well. So that kind of made me make the big choice of moving across the country to that place. So these are these are some of the resources that I've used or I've heard of. I use the PA School Finder regarding looking at schools during my research. I hate to say it, but I definitely use Instagram as well. That's how I found amazing organizations. I also reached out to a lot of PAs that are working in Los Angeles and asked them questions. I found PALH through Instagram, which really helped me. I wish I met them earlier while I was deciding, but I definitely use social media as a way to network and seek services for. I had this one PA who read over my experiences for free and gave me great edits. So, but there was definitely a lot of asking, and maybe people read it and didn't respond, but I think it always that regardless of how many times you ask for help, if it's 100 or 200, you just need 1 or 2 people to say yes, and they can open doors for you. So I definitely use that as a skill. I've heard of COPE Health Scholars. I've had some colleagues use that for shadowing and also experiences. I haven't done it, but I've heard great things about it. These are some of the other sources that I've used I use the PA forum as well, just to kind of for shadowing opportunities for myself. I just would be mindful because it is a chat room, and sometimes, unfortunately, some of the toxic regarding medicine could be in there. So I think just be mindful of that, because I definitely sometimes got more anxiety reading those chat rooms than help, but it definitely led me for a shadowing opportunity. There's also a thing that I found recently that because I've been out of school for a while and I'm going to be in school next year, where you can take free courses for 6 weeks, like anatomy, physiology, as refreshers. So I'll be starting that in January just because I would like to take some of those courses again for free, no grade, just getting those topics before starting PA school. I do have to also say I am part of PLAH. I think it's a great also organization to be part of. I'm part of the ARROs, the committees as well. During my process, right at the end, they did help me regarding, I had some questions with the interview, and a lot of the members were very grateful and giving me some suggestions, which was really helpful. This organization, and I feel like it's also an amazing organization. I think community and network is super important, especially as a pre-PA, as a PA, and then one day as a PA. So I just wanted to share those resources. Thank you. And then if you complete the post-event survey, you can receive my email address or my phone number, and I'm happy to help in any way as possible. I feel like helping each other is crucial, and I'm happy to be a resource.
Thank you, Lisbeth. I know, I'm sorry, thank you, Samantha. I know, Lisbeth, you're sending your slides over.
Yeah, I can send them, or I can just share my screen, whatever
Oh,
is
sure.
easier for you guys.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'll get to sharing. Okay, can everyone see what I've got going on here?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So thank you guys for having me. My name is Lisbeth Acosta. I'm currently a student at Charles Archer University in Los Angeles. And my approach to this was I just kind of wanted to tell my story and encourage you guys. Like Samantha's mentioned and how other people have mentioned, it can be discouraging and really complicated to get to where you want to be. So I want to just kind of be a positive light, make everyone feel like you can do it because you totally can. So a little bit about me. I was born in Guanajuato, Mexico. I came to the US when I was 2 with my parents. I grew up in Santa Clarita, California, and I ultimately went to Long Beach State. This is a picture down here of Guanajuato. It is absolutely gorgeous. I cannot wait to go back. In the middle, that is my fiance and I. We are avid Disneyland attendees. And below that is our cat, Junie. She's an angel. And then to the right are my parents. I'm an only child, so I'm very grateful for my parents. And I'm sure, as we all know on these journeys, the people who stand behind you are your motivators, and they will get you where you got to go. So I'm really grateful for them. So I wanted to shout them out, as well as just let you guys get to know me a little bit better. I really am passionate about helping people get into PA school because I kind of feel like I just did it all on my own. I don't think I utilized resources enough. And I mean, I still got to the end goal, but I want to help people get to where they want to be. So I did my undergraduate degree at Long Beach State University. My bachelor's degree is in athletic training. A lot of people don't know what athletic training is, so I put a little blurb here, but essentially athletic trainers work in sports medicine. We examine, diagnose, treat, and rehabilitate emergent, acute, or chronic injuries. The most common settings that we work in are athletics, so high school, community college, college, universities, or like professional sports. If you ever watch an NFL game and someone gets hurt and you hear, oh, the athletic training staff is going onto the field, that is what I used to do. So during my time at California State University, Long Beach, our program was actually formatted similarly to PA school. You had clinical rotations. And these are some of the clinical rotations that I went on as an undergraduate student. I was at Cerritos College in the spring, El Camino College here in Torrance. For my fall rotation, I worked football with them and it was a lot of fun. And then I worked with Long Beach State men's basketball for 1 full year. And that was a really great time. I feel like that's where I learned the most about working with people closely to get them to where they want to be in their personal and professional goals. And then I also worked with the Long Beach State Dance team. They have a dedicated clinic to the students that are a part of the dance program at Long Beach State, and it was amazing, super fulfilling. But that may make you wonder, if that's so great, why are you going to be a PA now, right? And I've had a lot of people ask me that at my interview. One of the interviewees was like, why not PT? Why not go? There's so many other things. Why not just change the level that you like to practice at? Um, but if you see this guy in the picture right here on the right, the PA directing me on how to cut this lovely cast off, his name is Anthony, and he is also an athletic trainer and he is also an ortho PA. And he would actually come to Long Beach State, and because he was an alumni of our program, he would talk to us about what he does, but how he still stays involved with the athletic training community. And I just fell in love with what that could be for me. So this was the first time I met Anthony. We were in this casting lab, and it, like, the PA profession just sounded amazing. And so I was still in school for athletic training, but I set my sights on what I wanted to do in the future. So you'll have a lot of people ask you on this journey, why do you want to be a PA, right? And for everyone, it'll be different. But for me, I wanted to broaden my scope of practice. Athletic training, you do work under a supervising physician, and you are limited to orthopedics, essentially. And I am really interested in all aspects of medicine. So I wanted to be able to have the freedom to experience a lot of different specialties. You know, everyone likes to throw that term around, lateral mobility, you know? So I really, really enjoyed that about the profession. And in that, you get to collaborate with other professions. For example, I just finished my psychiatry rotation, and the interdisciplinary team that we had at that rotation was amazing. Every single day, we would see patients with an occupational therapist, a case manager, a social worker, the MD that I was precepting under, and 2 PA students. And together, I just feel like we helped so many people, and it was incredibly fulfilling. So I love the collaboration with other professions that this career provides. I think a big part of it was what I could already see happening with athletic training. I did not see there being a lot of longevity in that career for me, and I wanted to be in a profession that I could do a million different things, you know? So I wanted to be able to be a clinician for as long as possible. And as much as people don't like to mention it, he's making money. So, and I think it's important to set yourself up for success in the long road. So that was definitely a big part of it. The athletic training profession, unfortunately, we do not have licensure in California, which is a whole other topic, but that really affected how I saw myself in that career. So that is why I chose PA. I'm really, really in love with the profession, and I'm in love with helping other students get to the same end goal. We're all trying to be the best PAs we can be. So this is my timeline. I graduated from Long Beach State in 2018, and that's when I started looking for athletic training jobs. I ultimately worked as an athletic trainer for 3 years prior to applying to PA school. So on the right, these are the jobs that I held. I worked for Delta Airlines. We have a clinic at LAX. There's a clinic like under, when you're in a terminal, there's usually like a clinic under. They just got a brand new clinic above the terminals now. But anyways, I worked, we call them industrial athletes. So these people work really, really hard. Their jobs are extremely hard on their bodies. And so we provided a lot of first aid and rehabilitative therapy, and our facility doubled as a gym. So it was really great for them to preventatively to prevent injuries, right? If you can create the best version of yourself, if you can build strength and take care of yourself before you get injured, then we can prevent so many different injuries. So I really enjoyed working in that industrial sector. I also worked at an industrial like sized bakery. That's what this Arista bakery is. And I enjoyed this job the most because I spoke in Spanish 100% of the time. And it was so incredibly fulfilling to work with people who really needed someone to just take care of them while they worked incredibly hard. I don't know if you've ever thought of maybe what an industrial bakery is like, but these machines are huge and it's a lot of taxing work. They make the bread for like Starbucks and Subway and like those really nice Costco cranberry loaves that you see. And they just work extremely hard, and that job was incredibly fulfilling in working closely with those employees. And then I also worked at a high school. So this is kind of the most traditional role as an athletic trainer that I held. I was the first athletic trainer at this high school. This is a brand new high school in the Santa Clarita Valley. And so I was the very first athletic trainer there. I really enjoyed my time there. Working with the high school athletes was extremely fulfilling. But throughout all that time working those jobs, I was getting ready to go to PA school. So I began fulfilling my prerequisites. Like I said, I was still in for athletic training and my sights were already set on PA. So I began fulfilling prerequisites for PA school during my last semester of undergrad. And then whatever prerequisites were still left, I think I took 3 semesters of prerequisites at College of the Canyons in Santa Clarita. And I just think that utilizing community colleges is insanely great. I fulfilled a good chunk of prerequisites that my undergraduate degrees didn't cover for PA. So I really encourage people to utilize their local community colleges to get their prerequisites done. I volunteered in a lot of different areas. A lot of them weren't like fully healthcare related, and I think that served me the most because it just showed on my application that I was a well-rounded person. So I volunteered at my local food bank. I ran social media for a nonprofit healthcare organization called Human Health Project. They are actually based in Ireland. So it was really interesting to see that there are people all over the world that just want to help people increase their healthcare outcomes. And then I also volunteered for admin in a hospice facility. So these were like, I always like to remind people, your volunteering does not have to be in a hospital or anything healthcare related. You can be a well-rounded applicant by volunteering in whatever is meaningful to you. I think a lot of programs really appreciate that. And then, like I said, throughout this whole time I was working. And I really share these dates to kind of encourage you to take the time to really make yourself the best applicant that you can be. I took 3 years and I would not trade those 3 gap years for anything because I feel like I was really ready to apply to school when I finally did. So in June of 2021, I applied to 7 schools. I had to pull one application because I did not make sure that my letter of recommendation from one person was, like, for example, Loma Linda requires that the letter of recommendation from the PA is a PA that you've worked with, and I did not work with a PA in any aspect, so I had to pull. They asked me, they were like, did you work with him or was he just kind of like a mentor? And I was like, oh yeah, he's my mentor. Sorry, you can pull my application. I had 2 rejections and then I had 3 interview offers. I completed my very first interview at Charles R. Drew, and I was accepted the very next week. And they were just so ahead of the game that I declined my interviews at the other schools. I'll talk about Drew a little bit, but I really just felt that that was the place for me, and I felt like other people would maybe utilize those interview seats better than me because I knew where I wanted to be. So I closed off my application with the other programs that had given me interviews. And then in August of 2022, I started PA school. So I'm over a year in. It's been incredibly fulfilling. We are on clinical rotations now. I completed my urgent care rotation first, and then I completed my psychiatry rotation. And I say all that just to encourage you because getting into PA school is hard and didactic year is hard, but it just feels amazing when you get to start doing what you came here to do. So I really just encourage you all to keep going. These are some tips for your journey. I kept it kind of light. Sarah was at our presentation we did with USC today, and I could talk forever about all the ways that you could make your journey the most fulfilling, but these are the ones that I think is really important. I've already mentioned the first one, take your time because applying to PA school is not a race. It may feel like you're in a race with other people that you know, or even within yourself, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm taking too long. But you will be the best version of yourself when your application is ready and you are prepared to start. Be organized. I kept a running document of experiences and hours. It's very easy to say like, oh yeah, I'll do it later, but you'll be surprised at how quickly you forget. You'll be like, oh my God, how many hours did I do there? And what did I do? So keep a running log. It also is helpful I look back on my logs of things I did. I'm like, wow, I really enjoyed being at the food bank that day. So it's really important to just keep a running log of everything that you're doing that you're ultimately going to want to put in your CASPA application. And like Samantha, I also had a nice big Google Sheets document of all my schools. I think I have it pulled up actually, so I can probably show you guys. But essentially I had the 7 schools I was going to apply to, and then across the way I had every single prerequisite they needed and whether I fulfilled it or not, how many hours, what I needed to make sure to complete, did they need a supplementive application. Had I done it yet? Like, you'll really benefit yourself if you just continue to be organized, because it's very easy to get, especially if you apply to more and more schools. I applied to 7, but there's so many people that apply to 10, 12, 15, and you will easily get lost if you don't stay organized. So I really suggest that. In staying organized, creating a CASPA account early is really helpful because you get used to the interface and you get used to seeing like what sections you need to put what information in, and you can really just make sure that you're doing things correctly, because it is a lot of pressure to make sure you do everything right. So the more time that you get a look at CASPA and get comfortable with how it works, the better off you will be. I'm really passionate about personal statements in particular, so I always like to tell people start it early. Have a lot of different people read it. For example, if you plan on applying in April, I would start it no later than the January of that year. You need to give yourself time to edit it, let people read it, hate it, start over again, and start over again multiple times. I feel like I started over 2 or 3 times, and that's okay because you want it to be the best version of yourself. You want to show people who you are outside of your CASPA application. The term golden thread is something I learned at a different PA personal statement workshop. And it's just essentially just the idea that you want to have a topic sentence that you consistently bring your paper back to just continue the theme of why you want to be a PA. So just make sure that it's cohesive and you're communicating well to the reader why you would be a good PA, right? This is the very first evidence that they're going to have of whether or not you're going to be a rock solid provider. And then aside from that is just enjoy it, it's if whether it takes you 1 application cycle or it takes you multiple, it will all be for the purpose of you getting to where you want to be. So it is all worth it. If you attend events like mentor events, or if you're a part of any pre-PA like program, then you're already doing everything correct. And there's so many other ways you can join, like Facebook groups. I'm a part of the SoCal Pre-PAs Facebook group that my mentor, Anthony, the orthopedic PA that I mentioned earlier, and that's a great resource. The Mi Mentor app is a great resource. There's so many resources that I wish I had taken advantage of because I feel like I did this on my own and I totally didn't have to. So that's why I'm so passionate of like telling everyone like do all these things, because there's so many people that want to help you. Talking about my school. So Charles R. Drew is in Los Angeles. More specifically, we are centered right around Compton and Watts. We are right across the street from Martin Luther King Jr. Hospital. Our class size is 26, which is very small, but I'll talk about it a little bit more later, but it's amazing. And our program length is about 27 months, and our credit hours are about 101. It's so crazy to think of if you do like a master's degree. For example, one of my best friends did a master's degree in sports management, and her whole master's was 30 units. And I was like, wow, that sounds amazing. So that just goes to show how difficult PA school is, and it'll be a ride, but it'll be worth it. I included some pictures here. Down here at the bottom, this is my cohort, all 26 of us goofballs. This was actually at the end of our very first semester at the graduation for class of 2022. And yesterday, the class of 2023 graduated. So it's really great to see that. I mean, we just continue to grow together. Over here on the right, this is actually the group, part of our pipeline committee that looked to the USC pre-PA pathways today. I added in this picture because I was just so happy after we left that event today. And then this is a couple of my classmates in lab after we did a casting lab. So all that to show and to kind of segue me into talking about our class size is having these people on your journey with you will be even more fulfilling. These people in your cohort are going to be your best friends because there's no option but to do this together. So I love my cohorts. As class president, I feel like I annoy them sometimes because our faculty will be like, okay, tell your cohort this, and then I have to like almost kind of nag. So I feel annoying sometimes, but I love them very much. And once you're in P school, you'll have those same people that you can just rely on for everything. And a little bit about why I chose Drew is I really aligned with the program mission. So their mission is to prepare a diverse group of uniquely qualified physician assistants who provide excellent medical care with compassion while addressing health disparities, seeking social justice, and improving the health of medically underserved communities. So I won't go through each program goal, but you can kind of get a snippet of how the program attempts to achieve that program mission. And a huge part of how we meet program goal number 3 is we have a social justice society that each PA student is a part of automatically once you get into the program. And essentially the PA students run the club, and we focus a lot on community engagement. So we have monthly health fairs with 2 different churches, and they do food distribution, clothing distribution, and then we do free health checkups. So we'll do blood pressure. We will do we'll do blood pressure checks, glucose checks, height, weight, and it's really amazing to see the people in the community that come out continuously. We'll have people come every single month, and it'll be like even the simplest thing of helping them check their blood sugar, and you see them next month, and now it's even lower. And you really just feel like a sense of community, that this community really enjoys having us be there with them. Up on this top right is a picture from our toy drive that we did last year. We do a toy drive every year, and we distribute the toys out to the community. And this is just our way for our school to give back to the people that we want to take care of. This picture's from last year, but I think this year we had even more toys that the community donated, that we receive monetary donations, and then we go out and buy the toys ourselves, and then we distribute. But that's essentially what the reasons why I chose Drew. I think it's really important to choose a school that you feel like you are meant to be at, because like I said, I did my interview and I didn't feel like I needed to go anywhere else. I didn't need to chance it, you know. I was happy with where I was. So I encourage you guys to try and find schools that align with your missions as a person. And that's all I have. I will stop sharing, and we'll I'll hand it back to you guys. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So since you already kind of gave us the inside info of Charles Drew, we'll hand it over to Samantha to speak a little more on Duke, and then we'll start our questions.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. So regarding for Duke, I haven't been a student yet, but from my research and a lot of the webinars that I went to, I think for me also the mission statement was really ideal for myself. They were really big regarding primary care. I always saw myself as a primary care PA, especially who practices evidence-based research. Evidence-based medicine. I feel like for myself as part of the research career, that was really important for me as well. Regarding the credits, it's 109 credits. Regarding the length, it's 24 months. There's not too many breaks, looks like, in between, but that's usually what I saw was 24 months and then 109 credits. And regarding the thing that I think is cool about Duke that I saw is that they have their own full cadaver lab, which I thought was amazing. So, and you don't really have to share it with other schools. A lot of the schools that I was applying for, when I did go to the interview, they were saying that the cadaver lab, sometimes the PA students weren't able to be there. They only could maybe be for observation, or the cadavers were for the med students or the PT students. So for having a school that had its full cadaver lab where PAs are able to dissect and be part of a cohort. So pretty much how the didactic year is that we will be split up in groups, and then we will have our own cadaver, which I thought was great as well. Also, they have their wet lab and the tissue lab as well, to learn certain procedures, which they are always trying to learn new procedures where they really hear from their students. A lot of the alumni stated that they wanted to learn a certain procedure, so they brought it up to the faculty, and then the faculty then was able to implement that. So for me, that was really key on that. The faculty is listening to the students and seeing that as medicine is always growing, and seeing that maybe this is a procedure that PAs are doing and that PAs should learn how to do it or be exposed to it, and that Duke implemented into their curriculum. So I thought that was really important for me, having a place that they are listening to you. Unfortunately, sometimes in my past schools, that wasn't really the case if I spoke up, and sometimes they didn't hear or heard our class. So that was one of the reasons why Duke was my choice. And I definitely will learn more once I'm a student as well.
Thank you, Samantha. We're gonna ask Jackie if any questions trickled in, or if not, if you didn't catch any, then we'll go ahead and start calling on people that have questions. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, we have one question in the chat. It's what did your days typically look like during your didactic year? And a follow-up question is what do your days consist of now during clinical rotation?
That's a great question. So during didactic year, each day could be a little bit different. If we were on campus for let's just say we're back in fall of 2022. So on Mondays and Tuesdays, we would have class from 9 to 5, essentially. Usually it's broken up into morning class, 1 or 2 hour break, and then afternoon class. And then on Wednesdays of fall semester, we had our cadaver lab. So our program is in South LA, but our cadaver lab was located in Long Beach. So we would have morning class, and then we would have the afternoon to go get to Long Beach to our cadaver lab. It was at a lab called Science Cares, and we had 4 cadavers assigned to our program, and we were broken up into groups of I think 3 or 4. And we had 2 cadavers that were prone and 2 cadavers that were supine. And you and your group were kind of assigned to we started from the outside in, so from the skin all the way down. And depending on the module that we were on, we were looking for specific structures, and then we eventually had practical exams on those cadavers. But at the same time as that, we had our regular anatomy course on I believe on Thursdays, and we had like models, and that's where we kind of did our in-class learning, but our hands-on was really in the cadaver lab. And so that's kind of what fall looked like, a lot of being in class, not a lot of sunlight, especially once it was like winter. I would go outside, and like right now it's like already dark at 5 o'clock. But then now during clinical year, so for example, on this last rotation I was on, I live in Torrance, and the rotation I was on is in Los Angeles, close to downtown. I was at Kedron Community Health Center. They have an adult inpatient psychiatric floor, and I would have to be there at 7. So I would leave here around 6:20-ish, depending on how bad traffic looked. And your rotation will really depend on your preceptor. So this preceptor was in charge of both inpatient and outpatient psychiatry patients. So I was with one other student, and what he would do is he would usually just say, okay, go see the patients. They've usually had breakfast by about 7:30. So you can just chat with them, see how they were doing, how they slept, how they're feeling on any medications that we may have changed. And then usually at 8 a.m., they have a huge huddle within the nursing station of all the different treatment teams, because there are 4 or 5 different doctors, and then they had their own treatment teams. But we would all huddle so that we all knew what was going on, whether it was discharges or any like behavior that we needed to be aware of between the patients. And then we would have interdisciplinary team meeting. We would, like I mentioned before, work with the case manager, the occupational therapist, the social worker, and the patient to just work towards getting them better and getting them discharged. And then in the afternoon, we would see outpatient patients. And then after that, we usually have some free time for our preceptor to just go over topics with us, do some like practice questions with him, or just talk about topics that we weren't really clear on. And then by that time, it would be about 6 p.m. and I would head home, and then I would do it all over again the next day. So it really depends on the type of rotation that you're on and the schedule of your preceptor. That'll kind of determine how your days are. So not every rotation will be 10-hour days like the rotation I was just on. But clinical year is a lot different than didactic. I will definitely say I was more stressed during didactic year. Didactic year, you really have to figure out how the best ways that you learn, right? So some people are visual, some people are audio, some people need to reread something over and over and over, but you find whatever works best for you. And the age-old saying that you're drinking water from a fire hydrant is pretty correct. But you can make time to enjoy yourself as well. So when you get to that point in your career or in schooling, just make sure you make time to enjoy yourself. Didactic year is difficult, and clinical year is a little bit more fun, but you still have to kind of hold yourself accountable because we do have an end of rotation exam at the end of every rotation. So we'll rotate for 4 weeks. We have what's called EOR week, our end of rotation week, and that's where we have our exam that is linked to whatever rotation you are on. And you have to pass your exam before you can move on to the next rotation. So throughout that whole month, even if you're having really, really long days, you still got to go home and study sometimes. You know, you got to like keep yourself accountable for the material that you're going to be tested on. So the 2 years are very, very different, but they're both fulfilling in their different ways.
Oh, thank you so much. Our next question is, can you speak a bit more about schools you want to attend versus schools you're actually qualified for?
Is that for me or does Samantha want to take that one?
Well, I could, regarding for schools that you want to attend and schools that I think the biggest thing is when you are researching, if there is a school that maybe there's one thing that is hindering you, and then you're maybe able to get it done before you apply, then I will say if it's reasonable, go ahead for it. I think for me, there was a lot of schools that I realized that you had to get like a B+ in certain courses. And for me, I knew that I emailed the schools to just make sure if that was like a fine rule. And then a lot of the schools said, yes, it is, and that they would have me redo the courses. And for myself, I wasn't able to afford it. And I really looked at the big picture of why did I want to go to that school? And is there maybe another school that has kind of the same mission or the rotations in the faculty? And I was able to find schools that were similar to maybe the original schools that I really wanted to go that I wasn't qualified for. So I think it's definitely a personal decision, but if there's maybe one or two things that it's reasonable and you're able to do, I will say go ahead. But if it's a lot of things that you had to redo, then I would maybe, if you really want to do it, go for it. But you might find a school that is actually a better fit for you through your researching, that you don't have to retake the courses or gain maybe other experiences.
Yeah, thank you so much. And our next question is, do you recommend retaking a prerequisite class where the student received a C+?
For myself, so in undergrad, it was definitely hard for me. I definitely it took me a transition to kind of find my way through school. So I definitely had a lot of C's and C+. So I did retake courses that I felt were that I feel like were targeted towards like PA school. So if I had a C in a course that I feel like wasn't part of the requirements, then I wouldn't do it. But there's actually a lot of schools that are okay with C+, that if you have one C+, then I don't know if you should, or if you feel like that school will maybe help you in the long run. That class will help you in the long run. But for myself, I did take 2 courses to redo my C+, but I felt like because I needed to have that foundation. So it was more of a personal thing for myself that I felt like as a PA student, I would need to understand that material. So that was more of like a personal decision for myself, and I was able to find it at a school that was affordable for myself. But I didn't retake all the courses that I had with a C+ or a C. Hopefully that helped.
Thank you. And while we're on the topic about grades, there's another question for Lisbeth. If you're comfortable enough to speak about it, are you able to share your stats like PCE, hours, volunteer hours, and GPA? Oh, I'm sorry, you're muted.
There we go. Sorry. So I'm resharing my screen so I can show this slide again. I did kind of skip over my stats, but I did include them here. So yes, I will gladly talk about them. So down here on the bottom right, my overall GPA when I was applying to PA school was 3.75. And CASPA does calculate your GPA separately. So your overall and then your overall science are definitely 2 that schools like to look at. Regarding volunteering hours, between all the things that I did, I accumulated about 300 hours. And for shadowing, I was completing my prerequisites in shadowing during 2020. So more than half of my hours for shadowing were virtual, and a lot of them I had gotten through opportunities from my undergraduate program before COVID. But virtual shadowing is a really, really great resource. I highly recommend it because it's getting harder and harder to find PAs to shadow. So if you can find a virtual resource, that one is really that is a really beneficial form of getting your shadowing in. For my healthcare experience hours, they were about 1,000. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I lost a lot of patient care time because most of my athletic training jobs transitioned to like temperature checks. And so that was still considered healthcare experience, but it wasn't patient care like hands-on. But regarding patient care hours, I did end up with about 3,500 hours. Drew does require 2,000 direct patient care hours, so I think that helped make me competitive. I had a good amount of hours for that. And then I think there was one more thing that you had asked for. Oh, does CDU require GRE? It does not. And that was actually a really big reason as to why I applied to Drew and why I applied to all the schools that I did apply to. I did not want to have to take the GRE. It takes a lot of time, and if there's a program that you really, really, really want to go to and they require it, go for it, you know? But I didn't have to, and I still ended up at a really amazing school. So definitely open up your mind to the programs that have different types of requirements. I hope that answered your question. If you want me to talk about anything like more in detail, I'm happy to.
Thank you so much for sharing. Our next question, do you recommend to be part of the AAPA or organizations like PALH, even though there's a cost to them?
Yeah, so I joined the AAPA while I was just getting ready to apply to PA school. And when you apply to PA school, there's actually a section for you to put in what organizations you are a part of. And I think it shows that you are involved in this profession, right? You know what's going on. You're making the effort to keep up, even though it is a cost. I think it does make you a more well-rounded applicant. And if someone was looking at an application for someone who is an AAP member versus someone who isn't, it's just a little bit of a nudge that shows that you're dedicated to this profession. So I definitely recommend it. I did it. I think it can be beneficial.
I'd also like to add, when you're an AAPA member, there's a lot of discounts. So even if I know when I paid for it, I definitely used all those discounts and deals that they had because I knew it, like the amount that we paid. So there's definitely a lot of discounts, and on their website they have it all on like their resources. So definitely take advantage of that as well. That was definitely helpful for myself as well.
Thank
Can
you.
I interject really quickly to add to that? The AAPA also sends you a magazine every month. And yes, you're going to pay $120 for the year membership. But getting this magazine, at least in my opinion, allows me to also learn what are PAs, what kind of research are PAs involved in, what are the main issues that are happening in the profession, because these are questions that are going to be thrown at you when you finally do go into your interview. So you're supposed to already be up to date with all that information. And sometimes reading it offline, to me at least, it's overwhelming. But if I have a magazine that tells me everything I'm supposed to know, it's great. So I've also taken advantage of that, as well as being a member of the Physician Associates for Latino Health and all they have to offer.
Yeah, and sorry, just to add on a little bit more. That
Okay.
magazine is so interesting. I read that magazine every month. My fiance is like, "Hey, your magazine's here." I'm like, "Drop everything. I'm gonna read my magazine." And another thing is you won't have to pay for that forever. For example, Drew pays for our membership for AAPA and Kappa. So your program will more than likely provide you with the resources you need to be involved. So you won't have to pay for it at least while you're in school, but I definitely do recommend that you do while you're on your journey.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. And while we're on the topic again of cost, one of our questions is, can you provide some financial advice when being a PA student? For example, scholarships or other type of financial help?
Yeah, PA school is expensive, but it'll be worth it. I took out loans. and I saved money before starting school. So for example, when you apply to school and you get into school, your school will then usually tell you, okay, go fill out your FAFSA, your federal financial aid application. And even though you're not eligible for the same programs that we were in undergrad, right, like the Pell Grant or those super amazing things that paid for your tuition back then, that's how they determine what you're eligible for in loans. And I took out, I didn't take out the max amount my very first year because I had some money saved up. I said, let me not put myself too much into debt right now. But now that I'm in my second year, I am taking out what is necessary to cover my schooling and to cover my living expenses. And something that I always do tell people while you're in PA school is just make sure that you're comfortable. Taking loans out is a hefty responsibility, but it is really important to be comfortable while you're in school versus stressing about money because, as you guys all probably know, you're allowed to work while you're in school, right? You need to be focusing on what you're doing. So loans are a hefty responsibility, but I always just say, just make sure that you're as comfortable as possible. Make sure you're living, whether you live by yourself or with classmates or a roommate or a partner, just make sure you're comfortable in your living situation so that that's not an added stressor in an already stressful lifestyle that you're living for these couple years. But loans are really, the process is really easy. Once you submit your FAFSA, you'll get an email back saying you've been approved for XYZ. Your school will send you your like loan letter, right? They'll let you know also what you've been approved for, and that's when you can accept certain amounts. You can say, okay, I want this full loan, but I only want half of this one, and you can tailor it to whatever your situation may be. And I definitely like to remind people that you can save a lot of money by utilizing a lot of federal programs. So during COVID, I was able to get on CalFresh, which is SNAP or EBT, and that was a huge help for me because that took away any stress that I had about groceries adding on to my financial responsibilities as a student. They're a little bit more strict now because during the pandemic is when they removed one of the requirements of you having to qualify for work study or do work study. And it gets a little tricky because PA programs are like, no, you're not allowed to work. But if you're able to, just utilize whatever federal or state programs are available to you. I also utilize Medi-Cal. So instead of like having to pay out of pocket for the school insurance, because the school will provide you with insurance if you want to pay for it. But Medi-Cal has really been great. I was able to keep the same healthcare provider I had prior to starting school. So just look into all the different ways that you can save yourself money. And there are a lot of different scholarships that you definitely should look into. So, out of 26 of us, I think 7 or 8 of my cohorts all received the National Health Scholar Corps scholarship. Sorry, and that's a scholarship in where they pay for your schooling. They provide you a $1,300 or $1,400 stipend every month, and you what's the word? You like promise to work 2 to 3 years in one of their um associated like clinics, and they're all over the country, so it's definitely not hard to find a job once you graduate school. And it's also beneficial to go work in primary care and become a broadly like strengthened provider straight out of school. So that's a really great one. Kappa also has a lot on their website, and then whichever school you apply to, they'll have a ton too. So make sure you look into the individual school you get accepted to, or even if you're just applying, because depending on your deadlines, you might want to have your stuff ready in case you do get accepted. But there's so many different ways, scholarships, loans, but just make sure that you're comfortable. You don't want to be stressing about money while you're in school.
Thank you so much. And our last question is, what have you gotten out of being a pre-PA member of the Physician Associates for Latino Health, and how do you participate with them?
For myself, I feel like I've gotten a lot. I'm being part of a lot of the committees. I've created like networks, especially during applying for PA school. I had one of the colleagues read my personal statement and gave me amazing edits. Also regarding my interviewing, tips as well. There's also a member that's also in North Carolina. So when she heard about me getting accepted, she already reached out and said, when you're in North Carolina, I live here, so I will help you get acquainted with the place. So having that network, I think, is super important for me. And I think for me as well, as when I was an undergrad, I was a little more scared to reach out for help. Now, as I've grown and had some years on me, I'm definitely more vocal, and I've definitely been able to ask for help in that that program, especially wherever I am in my timeline. So I definitely use them, have had them really help me as well. And also being part of leadership of like being on the committees, helping out with the CMEs. I know as a PA, that's something that we'll have to do to get the hours. So kind of being on those committees and seeing the work behind it. I think it's been a great opportunity for leadership, as well as getting the help that I need and hopefully helping the organization as well. So it's been kind of a great partnership for me.
Thank you so much. I'll pass it on.
Okie doke. Let's see. Let me remember. Oh, yes. Another question. We'll make that as like the last collective question, because I'm sure Samantha and Lisbeth also have questions for us. And we actually allocated enough time for whomever attended tonight's event to also speak on where they are. But the question we posed as kind of our final one was, what type of message would you give to 3 parts, okay? People who are applying 2 years from now, people that are applying next year, and people that apply this year. So we're talking 3 different tiers, parallel. We're all going the same path, but there are certain things that, you know, set us apart from each other. Our needs are in different stages. So if you could speak a little bit on that, what kind of advice specifically for these groups would you have?
I can, regarding for individuals who applied this year, I think it would be okay if you have applied and you've had maybe new like experience or achievements. I know during my interview, while I was in that process before hearing, whenever I there was a certain point when I had a few updates in my courses or an experience. So I sent a very nice email to the schools, very formal, and it's kind of letting them know that I updated the application, and I also wanted to formally let them know. And at the end, I just also said, like, I'm also very interested in your school. So I kind of did my version of like my intent of interest. I don't know if that's the formal way of saying it. So I think I did that before my some of the interviews that I wasn't hearing back from. So I think maybe sending an email. I definitely would say, though, some schools I would read on their website to say, some schools definitely don't want any emails. So before you send the email, definitely look at the website to make sure, because we want to also follow their instructions. Some schools definitely say, please do not email for anything. So I did not email them. But schools that did not say that, I did email them. So I definitely would say, definitely email them. I think it's kind of nice to saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still interested. And also look at what I have accomplished since applying, of whenever you applied or you're wanting to accomplish as well. So that's kind of for those in this year, I would say. And I think in a year from now, I think this is a great time where December, you can do a lot of your researching and kind of getting ahead for the new year. And I think you're also in a great start. I think you can be doing like the living documents that we were talking about, researching your schools, and then start of the new year with getting your personal statement, and then also using Me Mentor and other resources of maybe asking for help of reading your personal statement. So I think you have a great amount of time for applying and not getting too rushed. And then for 2 years, I think that's also great, where you can really take the time to make your own timeline, and also see if there's any other experiences. Like, for example, I've worked in ID for most of my life, and I knew I wanted to get a different exposure to medicine. And that's why I volunteered at USC in the cardiac inpatient unit, because I wanted to see a different type of medicine, because I've been in outpatient ID for most of my career. So I think when you have those 2 years, you can kind of see maybe let me see the different specialties, because that's what's amazing about being a PA, is that you would be able to have different specialties and not just being a one specialty. So I feel like with the 2 years, you can kind of see if there's maybe other experiences that you want to add, and also kind of fine tune some schools that you are interested in.
Yeah, I think if you are 2 years out, you are in like the best spot you could be. You have so much time to like figure out all the little next steps, you don't have to be nervous just yet, like I mentioned, just try and be as comfortable with the process as early as you can, and that'll just benefit you. Make sure that you're meeting the people that you need to meet, keep networking, keep attending types of events. Um, Try and kind of look forward, because like the math will math, you can think of, okay, I work about X amount of hours and I have this many weeks left. How many hours do I think that I'll have? Will that make me competitive? Should I add on something else? Like Samantha mentioned, should I switch to a different form of getting my experience hours? Just really trying to keep yourself a couple steps ahead of where you need to go, so you're never caught off guard. Regarding once you hit the 1 year mark, it gets a little bit more like, oh my God, like I'm really going to hit submit. But you continue to do the same things, as especially if your journey is that long, I totally understand that you start to be like, oh my God, like I'm doing all this and I'm spending all this time and I really, really hope that it's going to be worth it. But just know that it will. Just continue to have faith in the process. And then if you have already applied, I think this is a really great time to, like Samantha said, update the schools if you've had any changes. Really start working on your interviewing skills, right? Start thinking of like, okay, what can they possibly ask me? What is something that I want to make sure that maybe if they don't ask me, what do I want them to make sure that they know about me? How can I make myself stand out as an applicant? Just think about all these ways and talk about people who have been through that process, especially maybe at the school that you are, fingers crossed, and invited to interview to. Use them as a resource, make sure that you talk to them about what they think helped them stand out and what helped them become a really, really great applicant and eventual student. I think you kind of apply and you're like, okay, now what? I just spent all this time on this application and like, what do I do with myself? But that's a really great time to just now focus on the next step. If I'm invited, how am I going to make myself known? And how am I going to present myself as a really great candidate for their school?
Any other questions that were not taken by Jacqueline, we can take now. I have one. If you can recall, Lisbeth, because you've been accepted to be school as of over a year, how many people or how did you practice for your interview? Same for Samantha.
What I did is my mentor, Anthony, I had a phone call with him and I was very nervous. So I was like, Anthony, like, help, what am I gonna do? But he really just kind of brought me back down to the ground and was like, okay, they're usually gonna ask you this. Do you have a response for that? Practice that. And so as weird as it is, I kind of like spoke in the mirror, like talk, eye contact, talk clearly, make sure you're still smiling. Don't let your eyes wander. My eyes wander all the time. So I definitely just focused on making sure I presented myself as a confident and like capable person versus like letting the nerves get the best of me. Because I've had job interviews before where I've been told we chose somebody else because you weren't confident in your interview or when you were saying that you were ready to do this. And that hurt, but you learn from that and you take that on to all the other things that you're going to do. So I prepared by just working with my mentor, and I knew a couple other students at the time, and I just kept in touch with them and I asked them, like, what are you going to wear? How are you, like, are you okay? um but I mainly prepared by just making sure that I worked on what I knew were some weaknesses that could be seen when I interviewed, right? So try and have that view, like be able to identify that within yourself, what you need to work on. Be honest with yourself, whether you ask someone like, hey, when we speak, what do I need to do better? right? Or you can practice with someone that it does have nothing to do with the PA profession. You know, you could be like, hey, ask me this question and then tell me how good I did. Because there's a lot of like interviewing services, right? You pay for someone to do a mock interview or anything like that, but it's as simple as just looking within yourself and thinking, okay, I know myself. What do I need to work on? And so that's what I did is I knew I could potentially look nervous. So I just tried my best to like work on my confidence moving forward towards interview day.
For myself, so I definitely had some of my friends ask me questions, and I also had them ask me questions of the interview where it had nothing to do with PA, and also off the wall questions, and see how I would respond. And it actually helped me a lot because during one time in interview, someone asked me the most randomest question. And I wasn't off guard because I had my friends ask me the random questions. I think one time they asked, one interview said, if I could be a color, what color I would be. And I think being in that mindset of having people ask those random questions didn't get me stumped when I was in the interview. Also for myself though, I did save up money because I was a little nervous for the MMI, and I seeked this mentor on Instagram, and I paid around $20 for like regarding to practicing the MMI, which I think for myself was more because I was nervous and I didn't understand. I was trying to figure it out. So I definitely did seek, but I think for myself, I saved up for money. I do random side jobs because this is a very expensive journey. So I do house sitting, watch cats, so kind of any kind of side hustle. And I've used it towards this PA journey. But I think the biggest thing is definitely having your friends help you as well. I think that was great because I think sometimes when I was interviewing with my friends, it was hard for me to be serious and have that focus. And so I felt like that was great practice for myself of kind of getting into that space and asking those questions, answering those questions from my friends. So I definitely seek the resources. And then I had a colleague of mine ask me some medical questions. There were some questions that they gave a case scenario. And so I asked my mentor if she would be able to give me medical case scenarios and see how I would respond. I think that was also great as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Do we have other questions from our attendees? Don't be shy. There's only like 14 of us.
I have a question for the audience, if that's okay.
Mhm.
I was wondering how many of people have applied this year or are trying to apply next year? If you feel comfortable to share.
Yeah, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and speak up if you like.
Nice. I see a comment. Someone's planning to apply in 2025. So I think you're in a great start. And I think being part of these networking events and these organizations is amazing. And I see some applying this year. That's exciting. Well, thank you everyone for, I see applying this year, next year, 2025. I think that's amazing. And good luck for everyone that is that applied this year. That's very exciting. Does anyone have any questions regarding any more questions as well?
I have a question for everyone except our speakers since they're already taken off and on the path. How are people trying to gather? How are you all trying to gather your shadowing hours? Because that's in every single area. That's the toughest thing to find right now, unless you're already working for a pretty cool PA that lets you shadow them after hours. If you want to unmute yourself, go ahead, or if you want to just type it in, go ahead and we can read it off. Or maybe you haven't done your shadowing hours either, which would also be a, a problem to solve. I'll share mine. Oh, go ahead, Samantha.
Well, I also definitely had a problem with this, which I kind of found a little loophole, which I don't know if it worked or not, but was able to find one PA to shadow, but was only for an hour or two. But I actually found a physician at a federally health qualified center, and I told her my dilemma. I emailed her and I said, I've been trying to shadow PAs. However, due to a lot of institutions, they have like more restrictions and stuff. And she said, well, I'm happy to have you shadow. But I think what I said was, I would love to shadow, but if you can also teach me on what the PAs in your unit, like what is their scope of practice of you being a supervising physician, how would I be as a PA working with you? And she said yes. And throughout the shadowing, she told me exactly regarding the scope of practice, what a PA would do. She was like, this is what a PA would do. This is what, and she understood how. So I definitely sent, again, those like 50 emails, and one physician said yes, and I kind of was able. And then I actually used that example in my PA interview, and I said, I've had some difficulties finding, however, I did have this physician who really told me the scope of practice for PAs. And it was really enlightening for me, and I kind of found that avenue for myself. But I also continuing regarding, I think those chat rooms, that's how I found the PA to shadow.
Thank you. Elizabeth also just shared a link that she used. We also have Jackie saying the pre-PA clinic. This is an online service. The PAs that run it are from South University. I forget where they're located. Somewhere in the South, of course. Katie Bean and Beth, they do offer a lot of shadowing opportunities for free, but also if you pay and join their online platform, you also get shadowing opportunities off of that. Beth also used pre-PA clinic. Anyone else wants to share before I speak on mine? Okie doke. I happened to get connected with the SoCal pre-PA group that Anthony started. And I don't know, I think it was being part of it for like years, just kind of like snooping around to see what people were saying. And then there was a PA that was looking for someone to work for her. And I emailed her at like 3 a.m, and she actually messaged me back. And we had a like 2-hour conversation about her life, my life. And then she said, okay, when are you coming in for an interview? I got a job with her. And after hours, she allowed me to shadow her. And it was just an amazing experience. It's really daunting, really scary to even ask someone. But when you do get lucky, my goodness, PAs are just the most supportive, amazing professionals. My husband works in physical therapy, and he tells me, like, what is it about PAs? Why are they so helpful to each other? Where does this culture come from? And I tell him, like, it's a rough path. Like, it's intense, it's short, and then you're out, like, working. So of course you want people to succeed. So I was lucky enough to shadow this particular PA who, doesn't actually go public saying that you can shadow her. But also I feel like we lack, as pre-PAs, we lack skills in learning how to approach a PA professionally. And with, there's a lot of fear in doing that. So maybe that's a skill that we can develop and work around as a group later on. But that's how I did mine, and it worked out. I mean, for what it was. We have another comment here. Let's see. For Samantha Elizabeth, what specialties are you interested in currently?
I think my heart has always been in primary care, but I'm also recently been kind of fascinated by emergency medicine, which I don't know where this fascination came from, but I've kind of been really looking into emergency medicine. But I feel like if possible, I would love to do both. I know I follow this one PA who does like emergency medicine for like 6 years, and then she switched over to derm. I feel like I could see myself maybe doing emergency medicine for a couple of years and then switching over to primary care, or vice versa. So those are the two specialties that I feel like I'm really interested in, but my heart is definitely into primary care. I want to really be having relationships with my patients and being in a community setting.
I also follow that PA. It's really been interesting to see her like grow and change. I love it. But so since my background is in sports med, like my heart just it draws me back, bones and stuff, anatomy and all that good stuff. But I was actually pleasantly surprised with how much I really, really liked psychiatry. So I don't know. I think it's really important for me at least, to experience everything and then I can like make a solid decision, of course. But I think it's really important to know yourself and have an idea of what you like, because a lot of my classmates are like, I want to do this. And that's great. That's totally great. But for me, I'm like, I don't know yet. I might go back to ortho. You can go in so many different ways, and like that's what drew a lot of us to this profession. But all that to say, maybe psychiatry, maybe ortho. I love derm too. I really, really enjoyed our neuro module. Like you like taking in knowledge, but then it's like, okay, you got to choose one, you can't do everything. So I'm very broadly interested in everything right now.
Lisbeth, follow-up question on that. Drew, what kind of areas, what kind of specialties are already lined up for you to go through? And if there's one that isn't there, how do you advocate for you to like jump into something that is not on the list?
Yeah, so do you mean like rotation wise?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so our rotations, I will say there are programs or like for example, I know like and a lot of NP programs you have to like find your own rotations and that can be really daunting. But our program has every rotation you could possibly think of lined up and ready to go, but you can always add in any rotations that you are already personally connected with or you have worked with in the past or in the past, sorry. So for example, my classmate Kiki, she worked in a dermatology clinic in Beverly Hills for like 3 years and she wants to rotate there. And so she was able to connect that clinic with our clinical coordinator and make them become or have them become a clinical site. So that's one thing I really loved about Drew is they want you to practice medicine where you want to practice medicine, wherever you feel like you can help your community. So um, that's a really great opportunity. I actually just found out that I am going to be the one student from our cohort to go to CHLA orthopedic pediatric rotation. We have one student that goes there every year. And so the way it works for you to choose your elective and selective rotations is you rank them. You're given a list of all the elective and selective rotations that we have available, and you rank them like first, second, and third. And they try really, really hard to get you your first choice, if not your second choice. And that particular rotation, the CHLA pediatric orthopedics rotation, they only take one student every year. And so you yourself have to then put in the work and show why you deserve to go do that. So you'll always have to advocate for yourself on this journey, um, whether, for example, Samantha mentioned that she really liked that Duke takes into account students' experiences and listens, and Drew's really, really good at that as well. There's a lot of sites that have gotten removed within the past year because the cohort above us was like, this place is horrible. So yes, all that to say, you'll have to advocate for yourself, but it's really great to be able to add on any rotations that aren't already there. There's always room for growth at most schools. I think most schools will allow you to add on a rotation if it's like feasible. And I think for Drew, one of the main things is they just have to be able to continue taking students after you because it's a lot of paperwork and time. And so they're not going to do all that work for just like one student to go rotate there. So that rotation has to continue to be able to take students after you for at least a couple years. But yeah, in that sense of rotations, I advocated for myself. I said, in order to go to that rotation, you had to explain like why you want to go on this rotation and how it would benefit you. And for me, I just said, this is my background and a specialty that I'm specifically interested in. And I think that it would benefit me the most to attend this rotation because of, XYZ. It's like I wrote another personal statement again, but in less paragraphs. And but that's essentially it. Drew has a lot of great opportunities for rotations, and then you can add more if you like.
Thank you. Okay, with that, I don't think we have any other questions, but maybe anyone has anything else to say before we move on to the next slide. We've definitely learned a lot. Thank you both. Let's go on to the next slide and see what we have. Okay. As we come to closing, we also want to announce that we have our next event coming up in January. And with the Mentor programming, we plan on having, again, not just speakers, but also speakers that tell us about their trajectories to give us tips. We also want to have speakers that would share more specific things as to how they chose a PA program, how to write your statement, and the next one we have coming up is for next month, Friday, January 5th, 6 to 8 p.m. It's also going to be via Zoom. They'll be recorded as well. We do happen to have a YouTube channel with Mi Mentor. We'll be uploading these videos there as future references for other folks to use. And so we invite you to stay in the loop. We're going to go on to the next slide and see how you can get in touch with us. But please join us for this upcoming January event as well. Go ahead.
So a way you can stay connected is by downloading the Mi Mentor app. If not through here, you can also look it up on the App Store, or depending if you're on Android. But under the Mi Mentor app, you're gonna join the Pre-PA Student Network. Me and Sarah are currently in charge of it. So if you have an issue with it, you can either reach out to the Pre-PA email, but we see everybody that's coming in. So we're kind of the hosts. So if there's any issues, we can help you guys out with that.
Also about the Mi Mentor app, there are 375 people who are part of the Pre-PA network. We're talking certified PAs. We're talking PA graduate students that are applying the cycle, and then everyone else that's coming after us. So this is a perfect way to find folks. It also shows per region where people are. So if you happen to live in, like, I don't know, Covina, you can actually scroll down and see who else in Covina is in the Pre-PA career or the Pre-PA path. So go ahead and follow us also on Instagram. And what else do we have? Okay. One thing we want to build on is, as I mentioned at the very beginning, we are each other's resources. And that means we take advantage and support as many free of cost organizations and initiatives that are out there for you to join in. So if you're not already in the know, get to know some of these resources. For example, we have PACT at UCI. This is a Physician Assistants Coming Together student club. And I know they have a PACT at Long Beach State. Is that right, Lisbeth? They are very strong. And I mean, like, organized. I'm not surprised. I actually met 4 Cal State Long Beach people that either applied or are already in PE school. And it makes me think, like, is Anthony behind all this? But I realized, like, the mentorship aspect of what Long Beach State is doing is amazing. I wish every school had something like that. But there are other schools that are building on that. So then you have Marshall B. Ketchum also has a PPA mentorship club. And I think we have people on tonight who are part of it as well. And that's the reason why we put him up there. There's also a few of us that are part of the USC PA pathway. They have a PPA branch specifically. We have members tonight from the Tena Health organization that got started by Drew graduate students and now has expanded to become this amazing organization that has a health component to their humanitarian work that they do. And as well as the Vida Mobile Clinic that got started also. I believe one of them is a Drew graduate, if I'm not mistaken. It got started by 2 PAs. And they have a mobile clinic out in the San Fernando Valley and do amazing things. And they just started also a mentorship program for pre-health, kind of general, but they also have a linkage program with Marshall B. Ketchum. So if you're not already involved in finding out how to draw as many resources as you can, every time we have these type of presentations, we'll keep on adding more to this little bank that we have going on. So hopefully you can backtrack or refer to the video or take a picture right now if you like, and find out more about how you get involved in these programs. Okay, we'll go on to the next slide. Oh, okay. So officially, I want to thank Lizbeth and Samantha for taking time tonight to come and share all your knowledge. I am sure we will run into each other again. I am sure we'll invite you back for, any other session that we have on a specific topic, because you're amazingly, knowledgeable on these things. And thanks for sharing that much. We do invite everyone to please fill out the post-event survey we'll send out tonight. That way you receive Lizbeth and Samantha's email addresses and whatever other info they want to share. And so that this helps us build our stats within the Mentorship to see how we can better support you in your path. So again, find us, follow us, and we will see you next time. And thanks everyone for attending tonight's event. We really appreciate it.
Thank you
Have a
so
good
much.
night. Yeah, of course. Thank you. Have a good one.
Everyone, thank you. All right, friends, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Thank you, Elizabeth, for everything.
Thank you so much.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you, Samantha.
Bye.
Thank you, Samantha. Have a good night. Did you stop recording?
Not yet. Remember, it has to turn off.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll end it. Okay.
Okay.